Hello and welcome. I am so glad you're here today. This is a very special episode that's actually going to reveal to you the secret to rediscovering joy, clarity, and the freedom to live authentically. I'm Jennifer Regular, host of Awaken and Ascend, and also the founder of Lighting the Path and the Leadership Ascension Alliance. And I'm very excited right now to introduce you to Karen Richter, who brings a unique blend of professional expertise, nature-based wisdom, and restorative mind-body practices to reactivate that vibrant, alive version of you that might have gone a little dormant. So we're going to be talking about the nature as a reset button from burnout to feeling fully alive. I want to read to you actually what Karen wrote to me when I asked her about her mission and vision for the world and humanity, because it was truly profound, just so you get a little glimpse into her personality. She says, "My vision is a world where women stop running on autopilot and finally feel like themselves again, lighter, freer, more at peace, and excited about life instead of just going through the motions. By slowing down and reconnecting with nature, they reconnect with their own essence, discovering clarity about what they want and the confidence to follow it, and the joy of truly living." She says that when we remember we're not separate from nature, but part of it, caring for ourselves and caring for the planet become one and the same. And as women reclaim their vitality, they ripple that energy outward, creating communities that are more compassionate, more connected, and more protective of the beautiful world we all share. So you can see why I brought her onto the show. And without any further ado, let's meet Karen Richter. So glad to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, and thank you for having me, Jennifer. I've been really excited for this. I love your message to the world, and anything I can do to help support that, I'm just thrilled to be here.
Oh, thank you so much. And I imagine that you've been on a journey yourself, going from that burnout into rediscovering your joy, Karen. So I'm really curious about what lit that path for you. What reignited that spark for you?
So it happened sort of unexpectedly. I was on a path building. I was in the corporate world. I had moved up the ladder. Life was good, but I had that need to keep doing more, accomplish more. That was how I felt that I had value, was by adding more and saying yes to everyone. And I knew I was getting burnt out, and I was not getting the exercise I needed, and I was gaining weight. But I felt the way out of that was to do even more. And then I had some significant losses in my life. And the way I dealt with that was the way I'd been dealing with everything, which was do more, keep busy, power through. And I ended up with a very sudden, scary health situation that forced me to slow down. And that was hard. I felt like I was wasting time just sitting around and trying to heal. And so to feel better, I went to my happy place, which has always been nature. What I found was that it wasn't just helping me emotionally, but it was actually helping heal me physically. And I thought that was really curious. So I started doing some research and found that there's a lot of scientific studies that support how beneficial spending time in nature is. We actually, as you mentioned in the bio, or my mission for the world, we are a part of nature. We're just one more piece. And over the last several hundred years, we've removed ourselves, and we've been indoors, and we've been separated from nature. What I'm finding through all of the research is that getting back into that nature is bringing us back into our authentic, the way we should be living. And it has so many benefits. It has physical health benefits, spiritual, emotional, cognitive. There's just so many benefits of spending time in nature. And what's really exciting is it's not just any time, it's mindful time. So I think there's a lot of us that have always enjoyed nature, and we say, yeah, I'm going out for a walk every single day. I'm out in nature. But are we really connecting with nature? We're still up in our heads thinking about the meeting that just finished up, or the argument I had with my spouse last night, or we're not in nature, we're in our heads. And so I'm thrilled to be helping people slow down and get out of their heads, get into their bodies, and really reconnect with nature and discover all the benefits that come from that, which I can attest to. That I'm healthy now. I am living the life I've dreamed of. It's been quite the journey.
And it shows what's possible, when it can feel like nothing's possible,
Yeah,
that there is more, that we start to open up again to creating that alignment that allows us to have that deep connection, to actually have the capacity to receive the beauty and the wonder and the joy that we once had when we were kids, that came much more easily, but it's
absolutely.
still very much a part of us. And it's the way you spoke about this in your journey. It's true that how we live our day is how we live our life. And I can relate to a lot of what you said. And one thing for in my journey as well, but one thing that stood out to me too, as you just spoke more recently about, is are we really connected when we're out in nature? Because we could just be passing through, and being on autopilot. And I remember that when I was walking, I live here in Victoria, British Columbia. There's a famous park called Beacon Hill Park. So such beautiful gardens, and there's also peacocks that roam around, and it was mating season for the peacocks, and it had, all of the males were trying to dance around with all of its feathers and impress the females. And all of this is going on, and I'm watching people go by on their cell phones, just passing through, and missing the whole show, missing the whole thing, and the ponds and the water. And yes, we're absorbing that on some level, but there's so much more benefit when we can truly tune in and connect with it and feel that alignment and the expansion,
Mhm.
when we can open our minds and our hearts to that. And really, if we're being in our mind, we can also be in our heart. That's possible too. And we can be in nature with our mind, body, heart, and spirit all
Yeah.
intact. And so bringing all of that into alignment. So that's my question for you now, Karen, is how do we bring all of those parts of us into alignment and not scatter our energy or become so numb that we're missing life?
And that's a great way of saying it, that we're missing it. And I guess one of my biggest fears for myself and for others is to get at the end of our life and realize that we've missed it. And
Mm-hmm.
so I really want people to take this opportunity to live their lives now. Um, so to answer your question, I think a lot of it has to do with slowing our minds down, and that helps us slow our bodies down and become more aware of what's around us. And it's so interesting. There's people who, you talk about being in the park, and I'll bet a lot of those people have walked in the park 3 days a week for the last 10 years. And when they slow down and take a different perspective, look at things with a new lens, the whole world opens up to them, and they see those peacocks, and they don't just see the peacocks, they see the amazing feathers on those peacocks, and not just the amazing feather, but look at how many colors are on that one feather, and
Mm-hmm.
look how this shines in the light, and it just opens up, even though we're looking smaller. We're looking in a smaller space, but there's so much in every little small space when you slow down and take a chance to dive in deep.
Yeah, and we don't value slowing down enough as a society, do we? It's always faster and, streamlining and just trying to make things just happen in an instant. And you know what? Life can happen in an instant, and it can also change in an instant, as it did for
Absolutely.
you, as you were talking about the event that forced you to slow down and
And they
ultimately
say everything
stop.
happens for a reason.
Yeah.
And so even though that was a really scary time,
Mm.
I'm grateful for it because that set me on this new path and opened up what's right in front of me all along. And that goes beyond nature.
Mhm.
We learn that from nature. I always say that nature is my classroom and my teacher.
Mm.
Um, so we're learning from nature, but that also can be brought into our lives in other areas. What else are we speeding past and not seeing?
Mhm.
What else would we benefit from? What would be the benefits by slowing down and looking more closely at things? So it really does expand, starts with nature and then expands into your whole life.
Absolutely. And I'm hearing from people, because I've heard it before, when we talk about nature as being really the perfect healer, but also just to reconnect with beauty and wonder and joy and vibrancy again. And there's people that say, oh, yeah, you live, in the West Coast and you're surrounded by mountains and the ocean and the forest and it's easily accessible. Although there's still a lot of people here that aren't really accessing that, to
Right.
be honest. But then they'll say, well, we have a park. It might have a couple trees or a garden, but it's nothing like they're comparing it to other places and thinking they can't derive the same kind of value or benefit if they don't have that in their backyard. Or I grew up in Toronto where the skyscrapers weren't mountains, they were buildings, in the concrete jungle, you call it. So, how do you find nature there? I would always find it an oasis. I just seem to be drawn to nature. That's just my nature.
Yeah.
But what do you say to people who experience not having the same kind of access or feel limited in their ability to derive those benefits that we're talking about when we do connect with nature?
So you bring up a lot of good points. And one of them is I call what I do nature immersions or nature
Mm.
therapy instead of specifically forest,
Mm-hmm.
forest therapy or
Mm-hmm.
forest immersions, forest bathing.
Mm-hmm.
There are definite specific benefits for being in a forest. But there's nature around us in all sorts of forms. So it could be at the ocean and experiencing the benefits that moving water has. It
Mm-hmm.
could be in a desert where at first glance things look brown and dried up and dead. And again, when you slow down and look closer, it's teeming with life, and people are often amazed at what they can find. Then you have the people that are in the concrete jungle and they think, I can't experience this. Well, the nature immersions don't necessarily have to be this adventure into the mountains in the middle of nowhere. There's nature all around us. And I have, with a group of people, um, done a little forest bathing, a little nature immersion in a parking lot, surrounded by cars, surrounded by blacktop. You know how every once in a while there's a tree to give a little bit of shade to the cars?
Mm.
Just around that tree and connecting with that tree. And that tree is nature.
Mm-hmm.
You can also bring nature into your house. So I do some work with seniors or elderly, and it's not easy for them to get outside. Well, having an interaction, a nature immersion with a potted plant indoors.
Mm-hmm.
Or one time I was anticipating bringing a group outdoors. It was in April, so it was for Earth Day. And I'm in Eastern Pennsylvania. Weather's very iffy in April, and it turned out to be pretty wintry and blustery, and they didn't want to go outdoors. So
Mm.
now, spur of the moment, I'm thinking, how am I going to do this? And I just went outside and collected some pine cones, some stones, some flowers. You know, the trees were starting to flower, but then the wind knocked them off. So there were flowers on the ground that I could pick up. And I brought that indoors, and we had a little connection. We had our little nature immersion indoors,
Mm.
some nature that we brought in. Uh, I also do nature immersions remotely, which people think sounds really strange. It'll be on a Zoom,
Mm.
and they think, well, you know, how's that going to happen? But a nature immersion typically is me offering invitations for people to go into nature and experience it maybe differently than they have before. And then we come back together and sort of share about our experiences. And then I'll give another invitation and people can go back out. And so that's how it's done if we're in person. But the same thing can be done on Zoom. And
Mm.
so we'll gather here. I'll talk a little bit. I'll then ask people or invite people to interact wherever they are. And maybe it's they're in their backyard. Maybe they're um, at their own local park. And people talk about how much they get out of that because they don't have to go drive an hour to get to a beautiful spot. It can be
Mhm.
the tree in their front yard. And I had a gentleman say, you know, I walk past this tree every single day, you know, getting into my car, and it's pretty and I observe it sort of like a piece of art, you know, that's lovely. And he
Mhm.
said, but now I have a relationship with this tree.
Mm.
Every
Mm.
time I walk by, I just get this sort of happy feeling as I'm walking past this tree. So
Mm.
the the benefits, the experience can come anywhere.
I hear that there's a new level of appreciation and seeing things through a different lens. What other
Yes.
kinds of things do you hear people share after those immersions, after those deeper connections?
Probably the most common is that they feel much calmer.
Mm.
I just feel
Mhm.
so relaxed. I feel some of the tension in my shoulders. Um, they'll talk about their mind isn't racing as much.
Yeah.
That's the most obvious. But then there is the that connection, that um, wanting to have this feeling of belonging, you know, being a part of something bigger than yourself, you know, where you were meant to be. And that just fills people with all sorts of good adjectives, you know, gratitude, confidence. You know, I'm where I'm meant to be.
Mm.
And
Mm.
I uh, often people will say they got some kind of messages from from nature
Mm.
that just made sense to them, but gives them a little nudge in the direction of what they wanted. And that's what's so fascinating is I can't say what someone's going to receive by
Mhm.
having this interaction with nature. um, I can say they'll receive whatever they need. And so for some people, it's a beautiful, happy, joyous. I feel, you know, lighter. I feel happier. For some people, it's connecting with the grief that they haven't allowed to rise up. They haven't addressed it.
Mhm.
So that might not feel great in the moment, but then they talk about afterwards that that cry was just what they needed.
Mm.
Uh, some people talk about having such clarity, new ideas coming to them. You know, when you let go of all that extraneous noise, it's amazing what pops into your head
Oh,
as
yeah.
ideas.
And I also hear freedom that comes from releasing worries and concerns of the past and the future, you know, releasing those attachments that we have to those timelines and being fully
Yeah,
present and really feeling into the present and what's arising and what you're
mm-hmm.
feeling and what's around you and who you're with. And that's when the moment I feel that you're truly alive, you know, and experiencing life as it's meant to. And so, no doubt, people would say, I'm exactly where I need to be,
Yeah,
and recognizing that, and then going from there. with this new lens, this new level of appreciation and deeper connection, freedom, peace, joy. And I know, Karen, you work mostly with women. Is there something in particular about that you're drawn to, or do you think that women are just more drawn to this type of practice?
A little of both.
Mm,
And I think that women in our society, as well as many others in the culture, has been very masculine energy driven.
mm,
And so there are women, myself included, that worked our way up in the corporate world using that masculine energy, that do. And that goes against the grain of a lot of the energy that we have. Now, everyone has both masculine and feminine energy. I believe that the women haven't had the opportunity to relax into their feminine energy as much as would benefit them and benefit the world.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
I like working with women, and particularly midlife women. I'm finding that they have gotten to a place where they're now recognizing that there's at a transition. Maybe they're empty nesters. Maybe they're no longer caregivers to their parents, or they've risen to a certain level at their career and are looking around and saying, you know what, this isn't what I expected.
mm.
And so they're on the precipice of a new chapter, and there's a side of them that finds that very exciting.
Yeah.
Okay, this is great. And I don't have these same roles that have defined who I've become over the years. Like now I can let go of those roles, but then they realize that they're a little afraid because they don't know what's left.
Mm,
When you get rid of those titles, those roles, those expectations, it's been so long since they really stopped to say, who am I and what do I want?
mm.
And so they're a little overwhelmed with that possibility. I love working with them to say you're right where you should be, and now's the opportunity to listen to that inner voice and rediscover what who you are and what you want out of the rest of your life.
And nature is a wonderful reset.
It is.
Yeah, because
Nature,
all of
again, it's our
those,
classroom. It gives us the
yes,
space, and
mhm,
we also learn so much from it. So it's our teacher.
so much from it. Absolutely. Wow. Thank you. Thank you for bringing nature to the forefront. And I love that even B corporations are bringing nature's rights into their agreements and into their contracts, and making sure that nature stays alive, because there's a
Yeah.
lot to be said about that too, so that we continue to have access to these beautiful, beautiful places and all of what nature has to offer. And I want to share with the audience, Karen, what you have to offer as well, what those services are. People are ready for that reset or want to explore a little bit more. Where can they find you?
So my website is www.confidentbynature.com. And there I have a free resource that a lot of people really appreciate. It's a beautiful recording of a guided visualization through nature.
Oh,
So
beautiful.
some of those people that you talk about, they're stuck in the concrete jungle, or they feel stuck in their offices, which
Mm,
side note, I think the services of mine and my colleagues, other nature and forest therapy guides, I think the services could be brought into corporations, to businesses, to
mm,
really help. And I know businesses are always worried about productivity, and there's so much research that shows by spending a little bit of time with this reset that you actually become more productive.
absolutely.
So I'd love to see this coming into businesses.
Yeah.
But let's say you're stuck in your cubicle all day.
Mm,
This I call it the forest of calm, and it's just 10 minutes where you can be brought into that space of beauty in the forest and enjoy some time with that free guided meditation. I offer, as I said, nature immersions, both in person as well as remotely. And I love to travel. So if there's a group that says, hey, we'd love to have you, but we're not near Pennsylvania, we can talk. I love to travel.
Mhm.
And most exciting, I have a retreat coming up in November,
Oh,
and it's called the Awakening Aliveness Retreat. And I just
wow.
love that we've had those words popping up as we've talked.
Yes.
But it's all about shedding stress, releasing the shoulds, and reconnecting with your true nature.
I
And
love
it's
it.
in November in Costa Rica on this beautiful land that has reclaimed its true nature. It was deforested for many years to be pasture land.
Mm.
And then a gentleman wanted to bring it back, and it took him 50 years, but now it's a lush cloud forest with all the wild animals back and the beautiful birds and flowers. And it's just stunning. And so that land spoke to me, and it said, this is the message for the women who will come on this retreat, that it's never too late. And no matter how long you've been a pasture, you can return to your true nature.
Mm. Wow, I love that. When I travel, it's always often because I'm drawn to the land
Yeah.
or that it calls me. And so I often have guests on that have made that transition from their career into their calling. And also
Yeah.
now we can recognize when nature is calling and to heed that call as well and to be drawn into it and open to what it can offer you. So I'm so grateful that you brought that into our awareness, Karen. And I wonder if there's anything else that you'd like to share.
I just encourage everyone to find an opportunity to slow down. And maybe one of the quickest ways I see people doing that is if you're on a walk.
Mm.
I know there's a lot of us that get out to walk for exercise. And the little game I play is to look around and see how many different colors you can see.
Mhm.
And maybe it's the middle of the summer and it's dark green and everything's green. Well, I challenge you, how many different color greens? Or maybe
Mm.
it's winter and everything's white. Is it really? Just, and that forcing ourselves to slow down and look around. That's like the first step. Then you try to do that with each of your senses. How many different sounds can I hear? What's the farthest sound I can hear? And those quick little activities don't take long, but you can just feel your heart rate slowing down. If you had a blood pressure cuff on, you'd see your blood pressure going
Mhm.
down.
Mhm.
Um, it's a nice little quick reset.
It's beautiful and noticeable changes. And I can't think of anyone who wouldn't want that, who wouldn't want that
Right?
sense of calm, and that inner peace and to restore that sense of freedom that comes through that. And as you say, reawaken those dormant parts of us and rediscover that joy,
Yeah.
you know?
And that clarity of what's
Yes.
important or new ideas.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'd love to know, those of you who are tuning in right now, what of nature speaks to you? What do you love to hear, see, feel, experience in nature? Maybe you've had a profound healing experience even that you'd like to share. Let's put that into the comments because even just seeing those words inspires us and empowers us to connect even more. Not just one time, okay, I'll go out for a walk today because I'm feeling inspired, but to actually make it part of your daily life. As you live your day, you live your life. And so let's reconnect. Let's rediscover that joy, that clarity, that vibrancy, that aliveness. So grateful for having you on the show. So grateful for all of you to have been tuning in. Thank you so much for being part of Awaken and Ascend. We'll see you
Thank
again
you.
next
It's
time.
been lovely.
Absolutely. Bye for now.